Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Dulcie Swanston, author, speaker, executive coach, and neuroscience and psychology magpie. Coming up on today's show, Dulcie gets off to a bad start on the show.
God, I can't be in trouble already. I've literally been here 5 minutes.
Phil drops this bombshell. The greatest phrase I think ever said on this podcast. And Dulcie reveals a unique problem-solving method.
I just let my shoulders have a row with each other.
All that and so much more as we chat through Dulcie's epic story so far. Dulcie is just otherworldly brilliant, and there's so much gold in here I don't even know where to begin, but it will probably feel like somewhere between epiphany and therapy. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy! And a massive Hospitality Meets welcome to the ever-busy Dulcie Swanston. How are you?
Hey, I'm really, really good. Yeah, too busy, but you know, which person running their own business complains about that?
Well, that's true. That is true. And I mean, you and I have not known each other for very long at all. I'd say probably half a year or so, there or thereabouts.
It feels like forever now, though, right? Which is the beautiful thing about hospitality. You meet somebody, and then you know somebody who knows somebody, and knows somebody who knows somebody, and straight away, like you're like, yeah, I'll come on your podcast.
Indeed. I know. Bless. There was not even a discussion. It was like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, spot on.
But we met at a conference in the NEC in Birmingham back in, I think it was sort of summerish.
It was, yeah.
It's certainly better weather than it is now.
World of Learning. So
That's
I've
right.
just launched my new business. So it's more a rebrand of what I've been doing over the last 10 years in hospitality and out of hospitality. But yeah, it was an opportunity to share something that we'd been growing with the world, and we launched it at World of Learning. So always a nervous time when you bring a new business and you publicly, go, here you go. But it was brilliantly well received, to be fair. So yeah, it was lovely to meet you there, and thank you for your help, because you just came along and chatted to people about 100 bricks. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and you got paid in tea, which is always a good thing, right?
Always works
In
quite a simple man, really, as everybody knows, I think. No, we'll definitely come on to talk about 100 bricks through the fullness of the conversation, but I'm conscious of the fact I've kind of just gone straight into this, but maybe we should tell the world what it is that you actually do.
What it is I actually do. Do you know what? That could take us a whole podcast, actually. So I'll try and simplify it. I mean, it might be helpful to go back and say, because what I do now is I'm a writer. So I'm really proud that I became a best-selling author last year. So that was massive for me.
Congratulations.
I work thank you. I work as an executive coach all over the world. Post-COVID, I have to say, I have 2 children of my own and 3 stepchildren. So prior to that, I didn't travel much, but COVID really opened that up for me. I also run a training business, and I'm also a neuroscience and psychology magpie, I would describe myself as. So my kind of the thread that runs through everything I do, Phil, is I read really widely about business, about neuroscience, about psychology, about everything really. My first degree is in English. I've always got my head in a book. But my niche, if you like, or the way I think I really add value to my clients, is I take everything I read, summarize it, and I'm able to simplify it in a way that people can use that concept this afternoon. So my point of pride really is whatever I'm doing, I can take something quite complicated, whether it's science or business model related, and I can explain it to somebody over a cup of tea, and they can then get on with their business and use that concept in their business. So whether I'm coaching, whether I'm training, whether I'm mentoring, whether I'm writing, that's the kind of thread that runs through it, is making the complex simple for people.
And by crikey, could we all do with that? Especially in operational heavy businesses where time is poor,
Yeah.
or any business where time is poor, I guess, which is pretty much most business, right?
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
end.
absolutely. Well, my book was called "It's Not Bloody Rocket Science,"
Oh,
and
that's
I'm
awesome.
from Yorkshire, as lots of people know, very proudly from Yorkshire.
So you
And
have to say it in the Yorkshire accent, then, do you?
well, I am talking with you.
Stop proper.
My kids really take the mickey that we go past sort of Woodall services, and suddenly I literally sound really different to their
Hey,
ears. Whereas I'll be with my friends from other places, and they're like flipping out. You can tell you're from Yorkshire, so I think it depends who you're speaking to. But yeah,
yeah,
it's not bloody rocket science was a phrase that I grew up with, and I'd like to think that that's what I do. Is I take things that are complicated and go, this is not bloody rocket science. How hard can it be? And you're right, where you've got a complex business like hospitality is, it's like, right, okay, what can we do? It is cold beer and hot chips, and sometimes there's so much to do that it's about going, right, okay, let's get some happy people, because one of the things I'm famous for is happy people make more money. And I proved
love
that when
that.
I was back at M&B back in the day. And again, that's one of those, it's easy to say, isn't it? It's a simple thing to say, but I'm all about making the complex as simple as it can possibly be, so people can just like feel a bit less overwhelmed about getting on with their jobs.
Yeah, well, probably one of the reasons why I was able to just walk onto the stands and get a sense of what 100 bricks was, and then be able to talk to strangers about it, because you're absolutely correct. I mean, certainly from my own experience, this puts you in the same realm. This is one of the things I love about Simon Sinek, or Sinek, however you pronounce it. I never know. Is that his speciality is taking what others
Yeah.
perceive to be perhaps complicated things and simplifying them into language that we can all understand. And you have absolutely got that gift.
Oh, well, bless you. Well, one of my other clients actually was generous enough to say, you're like a Yorkshire Simon Sinek, who's also a girl. And I was a bit like, I'm taking that, like, from my perspective.
Simona,
That's,
Simona Sinek.
yeah, what a compliment. So thank you for sort of almost saying that as well, because it's become what I do now is a culmination, really, because people who know me, I mean, I was in Mitchells and Butlers as was. It was Bass PLC when I joined it, because there's no secret that I'm well into my 50s. I spent 23 really, really happy years there before I became an executive coach, before I worked all over the world, before I worked in banking and pharmaceutical as well as hospitality. So my heart is very much still in hospitality. Love going back, love doing my work there. You don't have favorite children, right? But you do have children who you find it really, really, really easy to just have a laugh with. And I have a hashtag that I use when work doesn't feel like work. And I have to say that when I go back to hospitality, that's always the way, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Well, let's go there then. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of your career.
It's a good job I've got a good memory. It's a long time ago.
Bless you. You've already said that you're ticking the over 21 box on forms.
Yeah.
But
I'm one of those people now that you don't get ID'd, and you go, are you sure you don't want to ID me?
Please, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, take us all the way back. How did you get into the industry in the first place?
Well, it's either a funny story or it paints me in a really lastminute.com light. So I will just give you the kind of warts and all. But I wanted to be an actress. So I got into hospitality in a really slightly left field way, because I went to the Fringe Festival. I did a play up there. I played a girl with hearing and speech difficulties. I got reviewed in The Guardian, Stage magazine, and I basically got my dream. I got headhunted to go into rep theatre, because I come from a really working class background. I was the first person in my family to go to university. It was a real stretch financially. So going on to drama school just wasn't one of the options available. So I was hoping to get picked up by a rep theatre, and got my dream. I got spotted. But the problem was I'd only ever done drama for like 3 nights as a student or at school. Yeah. So there's this big build up, and then you do like 3 performances, and then it's all gone. And then you do another different performance, different play, different musical. And what I realised was doing the same thing for 3 solid weeks. I hated it.
Really?
I literally I had to cry on cue at 8:30 every night. And we were packed out. I mean, we were so lucky. It was an amazing play, and it was an amazing part. And you don't get packed out at the Fringe, but we did. But I was just really bored. I mean, you think that being in acting is going to be like really glamorous and really interesting, but actually you are saying the same thing at 8:30 every night.
Mm.
So went back to mum and dad and said, yeah,
Yeah, you know
dream
that
came
thing
true.
of
Yeah,
what I
the thing
wanted
I
to
want to do.
do.
I
Yeah.
don't want to do that now. Still in my head, I was thinking maybe a children's TV presenter, but I was like, oh, can I go back and maybe do a teacher training qualification and be an English teacher? And they were like, well, there's no money, so you can do what you want, but that's it. So I was like, God, can't get a job. Like, and by that stage, I was like, what else do I know about? I know about books, I know about acting, and I know about pubs. So they were the three. If you spoke to any of my friends who I've known for like 50 years, they would say, yeah, books and words and pubs and beer, and you've probably got Dulcie down to a T. That's me. So I had this genius idea. I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll apply on a graduate scheme to do marketing, because that's like words in a pub group. I was like, oh, this, of course,
Made for me.
no longer acting. This is the new perfect job for me. But I was so last minute that actually, and you'll remember these names, the Scottish and Newcastle's closing date had gone,
Gosh, yeah.
Whitbread's closing date had gone. So the only graduate job in marketing for a pub group where the closing date hadn't gone was Bass. So I applied for one job and got it. And I've still, to this day, not really any idea of why, and they just must have seen something in me. But I do remember I had an interview with the marketing director of Britvic, and it was back in the day where they got those exploding fruits on their marketing, and I ended up talking to him about football. I'd queued out all night for a ticket for the Rumbelows Cup final, if you remember the Rumbelows Cup
no,
final.
you are
So again,
aging
show my
yourself now.
age. And
Yeah.
I was using that to talk about my resilience, and because I queued out on my own as a girl outside Hillsborough all night to get a ticket for the Rumbelows Cup final, and he was a football fan. And I ended up coming out of the interview with this guy's tie, because I'd asked for it. I was like, I really like your tie. So I came, but then, you're kind of talking to people who are quite mature about it. And so, how did your interview go? Yeah, talked about football, and I ended up with this guy's tie. And
Yeah, and everybody's
like,
going, still not that well then.
yeah, and I'm going, oh right, did not get that well. But anyway, they must have seen something in that exuberant young girl. Gave me a try, and I mean, I turned up though. This is a funny story. I turned up on day one at Bass, and remember back in the day, Bass was a really big business. It had intercontinental hotels. I helped do the divorce from that later on. That's another story. But Britvic soft drinks, it had the controlling share in that. Coral, Gala, brewers and pubs, they were all together.
Right.
And I was the marketing person for pubs, and I was literally like, dream job. I rocked up and they said, oh, who's Dulcie? And you're like looking around going, God, I can't be in trouble already. I've literally been here 5
Not even
minutes.
opened my mouth.
Yeah. But I was thinking, maybe that guy's tie I stole wants his tie back. And maybe, I've always suffered from imposter, but that feeling that you don't deserve to be where you are. Straight away, I was thinking, oh, it's all been a big mistake. They're going to send me home. And they just said, oh, we decided we didn't need marketing for pubs anymore. So we've disbanded the marketing department this morning. Everybody's been made redundant. And you can imagine, I'm like,
On your first day?
Oh, on my first day in the business.
Welcome to the company. Goodbye.
Yeah. Well, this is what I said. I said, well, have I got a job? And they said, oh, yeah. We're going to make you the commercial graduate. And I said, what's one of those? And they said, we don't know. We've never had one. Seriously. But I've got to say, Phil, it ended up, I mean, talk about a swift lesson in the way that life works, and also a really good lesson in how fast hospitality changes, right? But as a result, I worked in virtually every function in that business. I worked in finance, property, commercial, went into operations. I sort of worked in brand development for a while, which was kind of what marketing became. But back in the day, they only had Toby Carvery. But later on, I worked in brand development. But what an absolute gift of a CV for a young person who doesn't know what they wanted to do. Because I was able to
here's a job that we don't know what it will entail. So off you pop and learn it.
Make something of it.
Yeah.
And I just worked for a series, no word of a lie, a series of absolutely phenomenal people who just let me make my mistakes, learn on the job. I mean, I was always putting in like 200% effort. It was like, I'm an all-in kind of person. But, I did some amazing things. I managed the O'Neill's business. So lots of people will have danced on a bass bin in an O'Neill's. I ran them when they were taking 50, 60 grand a week. I ran generously what's called the Midlands. I ran Wolverhampton to Swansea. Absolute gift of a job. We went all over the world winning prizes for our sales and profit. It was just a gift. But all of that came from the closing date for Bass hadn't gone. I ended up not getting a marketing job, and actually my first HR job was a bit of a left field one. I think there was a recognition that they needed to recruit more women into that area management role, and I'd managed to pull it off as it was described, which was I'd not run a pub myself, but I'd managed to do the area management job.
Right. Was
And
that the official terminology they used at your review? You managed to pull it off.
You managed to pull it. Yeah, you managed to pull off that trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, there was a bit of a bottleneck, right? Because you got to become an area manager because you'd been a pub manager, and then you went to manage a collection of pubs. But back in the day, not many women held the license; they were the manager's partner.
Right.
So actually, you'd got loads of female talent in the business, but it was a bit hidden from the organisation. So I was tasked with recruiting more female talent into the business when it became really understood that diversity wasn't just like a good badge. It was like, why wouldn't you want diversity if there weren't your business, particularly when hospitality was looking to attract more women? Why on earth wouldn't you want more women running those businesses and understanding the economics of those businesses? It's obvious now, but it wasn't so obvious back in the day about the fact that there were these hidden barriers to entry. Yeah. So I recruited for that retail business manager job for a couple of years, and that was my entry into HR, which is where I found my home in the end. I only moved into HR in my mid-30s, but then suddenly I was like, this is what I want to do for a job. I want to help other people be really good at their job.
Yeah.
That's
you know
it.
I love that message in itself, because mid-30s, before you actually you're walking something and probably reacting a little bit to what's going on around you and just enjoying the ride, but at some point it happens to everybody. I think you go, right, okay, I'm in now, and but then there's a realization of, okay, what is that thing that really, really ignites me? And sometimes you've got to test the water on a lot of things, right? This is why if I look at your journey, at the beginning, when you thought that you wanted to go into acting, and then the reality of that ended up being something else. This is why for me it's really, really tough to be able to make a decision to know what you really want to do until you've kind of just lived a bit and done some stuff. Even if the vast majority of it is the wrong stuff for you, at least test the water to understand what kind of ignites you in some way.
Totally. And as a parent now, I very much talk to my children about just going out and trying some stuff. Not being you don't need to know what you want to do when you grow up. You might not come across it straight away. But I was also lucky enough to manage the graduate program for a long time, Phil, and it was just mega to give people their first opportunity in that business, because M&B is a phenomenal business. I owe it everything that I've subsequently achieved, because they sponsored my MBA, did an MBA when I was there, and I did my coaching qualification at Henley. I did a diploma in management studies back in the day. I did loads of psychometric qualifications there. It was literally a phenomenal place to do your growing up. And I was lucky enough to manage the graduate scheme for about 6 or 7 years. And so many of the people now who people will know in hospitality came through that graduate scheme. And I love the thought that I gave them, helped to find them, first of all, because, we used to, in the end, get many thousands of applications for 8 or 9 jobs a year. But then helping people to get a really balanced CV across the business, to understand how the business works, as well as work on their kind of area of speciality, if you like. And I'm so proud of the graduate program that we put together there, because it did exactly what you're talking about. It gave people real breadth. And I think the fact that if you look across hospitality, there's CEOs, marketing directors, and I gave them their first job and first pub, and it's just ace. But isn't that the brilliant thing about hospitality? Is it doesn't matter where you start. If you're good at the job and you put the graft in, you can you can get on a board. It's one of the very few industries, I think, where that's still true.
Yeah.
You just got, and where else do you get the opportunity to manage £1 million of turnover and 40 people?
I know.
When you're under
By the
30.
age of 23. Yeah.
Yeah, under 30, but yeah, it's like horrifying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got given the keys, Mum. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, indeed. It's a total joy. And I think let's, I suppose, complete your hospitality journey, as it were. The transition from Bass to Mitchell and Butlers, how did it progress from the moment that you kind of found your calling, as it were, in the world of HR?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I hinted at, I actually was involved in the divorce of the last bit. So I was the head of corporate HR when the divorce, or the demerger, we should call it a demerger,
Yeah.
because that's the proper technical name, the demerger between Intercontinentals and what became Mitchells and Butlers came about. So I did all the sort of HR stuff in the background, like things like listing particulars, all the legal stuff, answering questions like, how many people do you employ? Because that is a really complicated question in hospitality, right?
No
Changes
doubt.
every hour.
Yeah.
So, but also doing things like setting up new share schemes, making sure the communications were done really well. So I did all of that. And it was that job really that was pivotal, because I got to hang out with the really grown-ups in that business, both the exec and the non-execs, and get to understand the pressures that brought to bear for people. And it kicked off for me a fascination that exists for me to this day. And that fascination is, how come some people can get their teams to perform brilliantly when they're not there? And how come some people can only get their teams to perform well when they're present?
This is a
Because
very good question.
I started to notice this, right, with these really grown-uppy grown-ups. It's like, wow,
grown up. The greatest phrase I think ever said on this podcast from this.
A grown-uppy grown-up. Well, people think I'm one now, and I look around going, no, there must be a more. If I'm your grown-uppy grown-up, there must be a more grown-uppy grown-up. It was fascinating. But it's like, how does this person get their team to just perform when they're just not even there? What is it about them that means that people take calculated risks? They're really confident in the absence of their leader. And I was a bit like, oh, this is really interesting. So what? You don't actually need to be there to lead well. You can actually almost make yourself redundant as a leader. And that's how I describe my coaching now, is great coaches make themselves redundant. But it created for me a fascination in that. And as always, I just go and lean on the science. It's like, what does science and research say about what's the difference between some people needing to be present to get a great performance from their team, and some people appearing to like do next to nothing as a leader, but their team are like performing their socks off. What's the magic? And subsequently, I've done loads of science and research that highlights what the magic is. And what I do is I teach people how to do that. I train people how to do that, but I also do coaching to help people to understand how they're getting in their own way if they're not a leader who is really good at helping people to perform when they're not there. And I do it with a smile on my face. I do a bit of Yorkshire humour, sometimes over a beer. And I'm just phenomenally lucky that now pays my bills, right? What a joy of a job.
Well, you could argue that luck doesn't happen by accident. I know is that an oxymoron? Yeah. Is that officially an oxymoron? But there's so many sayings out there about the world of luck. My favourite one of all time is Gary Player, the golfer, who said the harder I practice, the luckier I get. And generally speaking, these things happen for a reason, and it is, I would guess, because this stuff truly ignites you. Like yes, the step into HR was the first proper full ignition, maybe. But then what came after that sounds like that took the ignition up a notch. You became fascinated. And we spoke before we even turned the microphone on about the concept of, you don't sometimes feel like you're doing a day's work because you're actually just doing the stuff that you love to do. And that's not luck. That is not luck that happens that way.
And I coach people in that all the time. And you say, we talk about ourselves, don't we? And I used to talk about my imposter a lot. My imposter, by the way, I had some really expensive coaching on my imposter. And for anybody out there who still has that imposter sensation, I call it imposter thinking. I refuse to call it syndrome.
Very
That's
good.
going to be hopefully my thing that I did for the world, is get rid of the term
I'll take
imposter
that on
syndrome.
for
Imposter
sure.
thinking, because then you can turn it into it, becomes it. And it can be a little lowercase it. Because mine's just coming along for the ride, Phil. Mine's
Yeah.
not going anywhere. But when you experience imposter thinking, the sign suggests is actually it's a sign of really positive things. It's a sign that you've not plateaued, because we only get that sensation when we're still in growth. It's a sign that you've got a relative amount of humbleness about you. You know, you are grateful for what you've got, and in some ways you're a bit, you still look at it and you're still like phenomenally grateful that that's happened to you, and that's never going to be a bad thing.
Mm.
It also, we don't get it when we are blind to ourselves. So actually, you only get it if you've got a certain sort of reflective brain that enables you to be reasonably self-critical. So it's a sign that you're quite smart. So once you get your head around the fact that all of that imposter feeling exists, and it's actually a really positive indicator of lots of stuff, you kind of go, oh, well, maybe I don't want to get rid of it. So mine just comes along for the ride now. But
Yeah.
you're right. It means that we say things like, oh, I'm so lucky. And when you dig into it, you go, yeah, it's a lot of hard work. But I never went back to full-time work after I had my children, as in I never went back to at least 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but hospitality never is, right?
Mm.
But now I work for myself. I still take lots of time off to be with my children. It's like I work around them and still do, even though they're 18 and 21. But that's hospitality, right? You can do your
Totally.
work whenever the opportunities are there. You can manage it around your family. But I do work incredibly hard. But when work doesn't feel like work is my hashtag, because if I'm with somebody who is in a really senior role and they are talking to me about what's getting in their way, and I can help them to overcome that, and as a result they come back and they say, oh, you're not going to believe it, we've achieved this, or you see then their teams coming through, and sometimes you get to meet their teams because somebody in their team comes for coaching, and they talk about this relationship they've had with their boss, and it's been brilliant, and I really want to know about some of the stuff that you've helped them to understand. It's like flipping heck, what a joy of a job. Yeah, you can tell I'm a big fan of the job I've created for myself. It's quite
Well,
niche,
Dulcie, to be honest,
but it's my niche.
yeah, yeah, but but that's great, and so many things. Do you know, I spoke to somebody just last week about the world of the imposter that sits within us, and she had a great idea, which I will also take on board. Is that she gave it a name,
Yeah,
like a human name, and in her case,
yeah,
it was called Linda. And as she said, no disrespect to any Lindas out there. That was just what she decided, and I really like that. Like, give them an actual persona, a character, that the way that they dress and all of that, so that you can almost interact with it. And I know it sounds maybe a little bit
no,
psychotic, but I kind of got it, because
yeah,
you're working together. You're not necessarily working in each other's way, and then
yeah,
add in everything that you just said there about, in actual fact, it's a good thing that
yeah.
you've got this thing. Then yeah, I should be
Well,
looking at
I
it
talk to
differently.
people about the fact that I've got two voices on my shoulder. Sorry, I talked over you then. It was I think the headphones cut out for a minute, but I talk about as though I've got a little person on my shoulder, if that makes sense. So I don't give mine a name, but I just call it it, because it's just, oh, it it's here. It is what it is. I can talk about it as it. But what I imagine is that the it actually is me. It's somebody who did come from, a working class family who got some really lucky breaks along the way, and I'm lucky that I like working, and I'm lucky that I've got a good brain that like remembers stuff, right? And that not everybody is lucky to be able to have those gifts, and I have, but I'm quite humble about that. And it is me. But then on my other shoulder, what I've learned to do, and again, this is a trick that I learned with that clever coach who, yeah, didn't get rid of it, but we developed this as a strategy, is on my other shoulder, I have everything I'm not. So I have, in my case, no slight on any listeners and no slight on you, but I've got a man who is entitled and, didn't want for anything growing up. And actually, they're the people that are running a lot of the world, right? But I can't complain about somebody on that shoulder, that little person running the world, when the person on this shoulder is still going, oh gosh, I really shouldn't put myself forward for that. Oh God, I won't be up for that, because the person on this shoulder just goes, yeah, how hard can it be?
Yeah.
I'm amazing. So what I do is I let my shoulder, like you can see, it's like nobody's just listening to the VSL to see what I'm doing, but I'm sort of doing the honey monster, if you like. I just let my shoulders have a row with each other, because then in the middle there's a beautiful bit of synergy, if you like, isn't there?
Yep.
There's a debate that's gone on around, well, I'm not entitled to success, but actually I can't complain about who's running the show if I don't put myself forward to run the show, right?
Yeah, totally. When you put it like that,
Yeah.
simple language, Dulcie. There
Yeah.
we are. You see,
It's not bloody rocket science. So
it's not
there's
bloody
always
rocket
there's
science.
always a workaround. There's always a bit of imagery, and as you were talking about there's nothing as strange as our own brains. I mean, all of the work I do as well is about how, as human beings, we get in our own way all the time. And I think once you're onto yourself, chapter 1 of my book actually is called Lies, because we lie to ourselves all the time. And if you realize you're lying to yourself, you can see that really objectively. Whereas actually, if you're believing your own lies and your own hype, you end up in your own echo chamber. You go and find other people to join you in that echo chamber. You're just not as capable of the things that you are as capable of. So one of the things I love doing is just finding little hints and tips and tricks and stories. And your Linda, it's a great version of that. It's just like whatever works for you to see things as they are, not what your brain tells you they are. And
Yeah.
my second proper book, if you like, I've written some journals, but that was written with Dr. Ian Price. And I always used to have a bit of an insecurity that I'm writing about science and I'm not a scientist, but he is Dr. Ian Price, and he's a neuroscientist. And he talks about the fact that the brain is not a video recorder, it's an editing machine.
Okay.
And once you start to go, okay, so your memory of things isn't to be trusted, your interpretation of things isn't to be trusted. It's a bit like your brain's doing like deep fake on you all the time. And once you get your head around that, you go, okay, let me go and get some feedback from somebody who was there. Let me go and get an alternative perspective on that same thing. Let me go and ask somebody I trust to really tell me how I performed there, rather than letting the imposter talk to me about it. Or actually, even worse in my view, would be letting the person who sails through life go, oh, yeah, nothing to see here, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
But go and talk to people, because then between you, if you get 2 or 3 people giving you feedback, you've got more chance of having a good edit, right? That's
Very
not
good.
just a single version of the truth.
Yeah, totally. This is something I've wrestled with in my life for sure.
Go
And
on.
it was probably about 5 years ago-ish. No, it would be longer ago than that. I had a couple of health diagnoses happened within a couple of months of each other when I was age 39. I'm 48 now. And I've been on quite a really interesting voyage of self-discovery through that period. Very, very tough couple of years on the aftermath of that, until you start to wake up to things. And one of the things that I woke up to that has maybe been one of the most liberating experiences of my life is this desire to lose certainty for things. Because up until that point, I was hell-bent throughout my career, throughout life, that I'm certain that I'm going to do this, I'm certain I'm going to do this, that's certain, I've heard about that, that must be certain, all of that kind of stuff. And actually stripping that off and going right back to the principle of I know nothing is just, it's so freeing, it's unbelievable. And now I just enjoy being curious, and I enjoy being inquisitive around people's life, which is why this podcast exists in the first place. But also, just when it comes to bigger world arguments or a day-to-day argument or whatever, rather than coming in, no, I know for sure that is the case. No, I can take on board that I might be wrong here. So let's discuss this openly. And it's just I just think it's a nicer place to be.
Do you know what? It's really interesting you say that. When you were talking, the thing that sparked for me was, people often ask me now, Dulcie, what's the thing that you spot when you're working with really senior people that makes the difference? It's like, what's the like magic formula for being really successful? And I've got a couple of things. One is playing to your strengths, like knowing yourself and knowing what your strengths are, and equally being open-minded that you're not perfect, and having some, not recruiting in your own image, having people that you will take feedback from and who do things differently to you. So, knowing your strengths, but then having a diverse group of people around you. Also, the ability to build trust really quickly, key, and then to be really challenging, and we'll maybe talk about top right, but it's the combination of those two things. But the personal quality I see most often in senior leaders that I work with who I admire, and I just think, wow, you're just so impressive, is that ability to be comfortable with ambiguity and to just make a decision when you don't know what the right thing is to do. Nobody does. And just that ability to just go with the ambiguity and to be able to sleep at night with the ambiguity and to be able to just get up fresh and to inspire people to just find, get some, separate the wood from the trees, all of those analogies, but just people who are comfortable with ambiguity. And maybe in some ways your health challenges helped you with that quality that I admire in people that I work with.
Without question.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
It's definitely, and it's something I talk openly now. It's no longer, there's not an elephant in the room when I speak about either of the issues. And that's helped me no end for, the purposes of notwithstanding the information that comes back to you if you are willing to be open is way more than if you're closed on something that can help you just get to where you need to get to. But I think the key thing of all of that is it definitely, this is not the Phil Street show and how to live your life by any stretch of the imagination, but it is about the realization that adversity is actually, I've actually got a saying that I use now, adversity is the friend that you didn't know that you needed, because a lot of the time they reveal things about you that you are that have been sleeping or sitting there for years, but actually you needed to break yourself open a little bit in order to reveal the truest part of you that you'd kind of put to one side because maybe life just gets in the way and you get on a path and maybe that path's not your own. And there's so many things that I've kind of realized in that time, not through my own work, by the way, in terms of a lot of this has been under discussion with coaching or the like, and you have the willingness to do the work on yourself to learn about yourself. But nevertheless, it's a wonderful, we've kind of gone into coaching here now, but like anybody who's listening to this, who is thinking about the prospect of taking on a coach, even if things are great, like just do it, because the different perception on you and what it might bring out of yourself is just, it's worth its weight in gold.
Well, people are really surprised, Phil, when I tell them I've got a coach. It's like, they're like, why have you got a coach? And it's like, well, because you can't do your best thinking by yourself. Because you're like end up in your own echo chamber. You lie to yourself. And I would say I'm really self-aware, and I'm also now really, really comfortable with feedback and actively seek it out. But the best coaching happens when you've got somebody who's got high skill and high will, because you're then coaching to take the roof off. You're coaching to achieve things that neither of you have done before. And that's an amazing spot to be. So I actually react a bit about when somebody is sent for coaching for almost as a remedy. I quite often say no to those assignments unless actually I see a spark in somebody and I think, well, hang on a minute, there's something getting in your way, let's have it. Most of my coaching is actually done with really successful people who just want to go, do you know what? I wonder what else. And it's fabulous because you don't know where that's going to go. But what you do know when you know enough about neuroscience and psychology, and it sounds as though you know this, is we're all capable of more all the time. It's just how much more and how much do you want? Because there's also a point where we might want to say no to things, and you could be more successful, but you choose not to be, and getting comfortable with what you've got to say no to, as well as what you want to say hello to.
100%.
I think is a lovely topic for coaching. So if anybody is considering coaching, give us a yell. I mean, I not only coach people, but I train people to coach, and again, that's one of the pleasures of my life. I run a qualification in coaching and a professional accreditation, and they go hand in hand, because I was a qualified coach for years, but I was never professionally accredited. And in lockdown, the Association for Coaching were looking for some people to do a pilot with, where they did both things together. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and asked the question. I became one of their pilots, and I'm now on cohort 12. So I've kind of trained over 3,000 people to coach a bit. So I run a program called Leaders Who Coach, where I give people coaching skills they can use on job. So this is not about sitting down for an hour with somebody necessarily. This is about asking better questions when you're on the move. But I also train people to be executive coaches. And I get people from all walks of life, lots of my different client bases. So on my most recent program, I've got somebody from a bank, somebody from a charity. I've got several people from hospitality, as you'd imagine. But then I've got people who've left hospitality and are in finance or manufacturing, because that's the other thing, right? If you've worked in finance for a hospitality company, you can work in finance anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you want to find out more about coaching, or you want to be a coach, or you want to coach, because the people that I train to be coaches always need thinkers. That's what I call coachees, by the way. I don't like. Yeah, you can see I'm quite opinionated about words, Phil.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Like
That
opinionate. I'm not having imposter syndrome, and I don't like the term coachee, because I think it makes it sound like you're having something done to you. So I like coach and thinker, because it makes it really clear who's doing the heavy lifting, and it's the thinker. That they're there to think, and I'm there to make the time that we have together sacrosanct for somebody's best thinking. That's my role as a coach.
Love that.
But coachee makes it sound like I'm in charge and it's all about me.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the other byproduct of having been through. I literally only had 3 sessions with a coach, and it was life changing 3 sessions, 3 hours basically. The
What
last
a coach you had! Give him a shout out.
Yeah, Mary Williams, if you're listening, you're a legend. Yeah, it's this principle. I think we're probably all quite familiar with. Is that all of the answers are generally within you, or certainly the answers that are right for you are within you. But sometimes you, as you said earlier on, we're pretty good at getting in our own way sometimes in order to find those answers. And that's when you just need somebody who can maybe just be that little spark of a change of direction of thinking that your natural way of thinking wouldn't help you get there, on your own. And as somebody who's been a benefactor of coaching, I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah. I used to say, my second business is called Tea Break Training. And I always used to joke that coaching's not a nice cup of tea with the HR lady, by the way. Coaching is the work out of your life, right? And if you've had some, because I would go as far, you said that we are quite good at something like we're quite good at lying to ourselves sometimes. I go, we're exceptionally good at lying to ourselves most of the time. Yeah. So actually, if you're going to be in a room with somebody who goes, yeah, is that true though? And how do you know that's true, and what's your evidence? And you're going to consider that with somebody. It's got to feel so safe, right? But when you do that work, it's not comfortable. I mean, one of the people I love recommending is a lady called Cordelia Fine. And she got a first degree, by the way, at Oxford, second degree at Cambridge. I think she did a doctorate at UCL, one of the London universities, and she's now a professor in Melbourne. So that she properly knows her onions, right? She is, really good. And she says you've got to be careful though, because the only truly self-aware people are also the clinically depressed. Because the reason that we lie to ourselves is to protect ourselves from shame, to keep ourselves safe. Because if you lie to yourself and tell yourself, I'll start that tomorrow, you are stopping yourself from doing something today that's probably going to be quite difficult. You should be doing it already, right?
Yeah.
And if you justify feedback, or you go, oh, it's all right, I did that because, maybe you were unkind to somebody, or maybe there's like an allegation that your behaviour was poor or whatever. It's very natural and normal that you would say, oh yeah, but I did that because your brain is there to protect you from confronting a behaviour that might be shameful. See, we have to be really careful when we're coaching that we do it with a smile, and we make it really safe to confront those uncomfortable truths. Because as Cordelia Fine says, the only truly self-aware people are also the clinically depressed. Your lies are there to protect you.
Yeah.
But you just have a look and see them for what they are and choose which lies you want to keep believing
Yeah.
and which lies you think, do you know what, that can go.
Yeah, and it's worth the while. Like, and nobody's ever a finished
Oh gosh, no.
problem. You know, it's a problem to be solved that will be with you, for your entire life.
Yeah.
Things evolve, you evolve, the world evolves. There's so much evolution that you need to kind of keep on top of. But that, I think, learning to enjoy that is also part of the process for me. Is that knowing that what you know today, one, might not be true in the first place, but two,
Yeah.
that tomorrow could be completely different
Yeah.
as well.
We have another saying, I've got lots of sayings, but another one that I'm really fond of, particularly for coaching, is because I've been coaching now for nearly 15 years. So I was coaching before neuroscience was really a thing, and you certainly couldn't do an apprenticeship in coaching. You had to go and really look hard for a coaching qualification. But when I'm training people to coach, and they go, when do you get a sense that you're finished and you're really good at it and you've learned as much as you could ever learn about it? And I say, as a coach, as a leader, if you think you're finished, you're finished.
Yeah.
As in, if you think you're done and you're good enough, you're done. Forget
Yeah, you might as well stop.
Move,
Yep.
move aside. So I like to think of myself as a coach who, despite where she coaches and what she does, and I'm now a master accredited coach, so I'm a really grown up as a coach. I'm never finished, and why would I want to be? And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of training people to coach, is no two cohorts of mine are the same. I get people from all walks of life. Some are really senior programs, some less so, and you just learn about coaching when you watch and help other people to be good at it. And we're always stealing stuff off one another, right? We'll hear a great question used by somebody, and we're like, I'm so having that. It's a perpetual growth thing, being a coach, which is great, because that's what you're trying to instill in the people that are your thinkers. It's like, this is never done, but we just get really comfortable with the process of thinking. We get better at thinking about our thinking when we work with a good coach. That's how I kind of frame it for people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day, to be honest. We probably shouldn't, but there were, once it just reminded me actually of they were talking about questions there, and like I definitely, somebody who's had a 20-year recruitment career, now works with a wonderful company, Carrero, in terms of helping people have better conversations at work.
Yeah,
I place a massive amount of emphasis on the right questions being, hugely appropriate for the moment in which you're in. And I remember doing an NLP course, God, about 10 plus years ago now. And I remember in the live training that we would do, where they would give you a subject, for want of a better phrase, a thinker. And I remember when I was learning the process, and the question that I remember asking while my coach was beside me whilst I was doing this was, and how does that make you feel? And we cracked on with the session and all of that kind of stuff. And then he gave me feedback at the end of it saying, the only issue you have with a question like, how does that make you feel, is that then kind of absolves them of responsibility, because an external force is having an impact that's making them feel way. We all have the power to be able to make ourselves feel something different. And it was that moment that I realized the power of good questioning actually can make a massive difference into the direction of travel with a conversation, yes, but also, somebody's life, really.
Yeah. You have to, that's why I always recommend that anybody can call themselves a coach. Believe it or not, it's unregulated. So if ever you want to get a coach, do check them out, and I would say make sure they're accredited and qualified, wouldn't I? But it's not that hard to become accredited and qualified. But you can open people up with a question, and if you don't know what to do with the answer, it can be really dangerous. But we talk about asking top right questions. We talk about asking questions that really come from a place of warmth and support, but also really challenging at the same time. And I ran a website for a while called toprightquestions.com. And I think if you put in toprightquestions.com, you kind of get a link to some top right questions on my websites now. But I'm always on the hunt for like really great questions. And if you saw my office, I'm not going to pan around because it's not as tidy as it should be. But there's normally questions that I've stolen from people littered around. And in fact, when I send people out their coaching and training pack, I will just show you one of these. All of the questions that I've stolen over the years, I've put on the back of my business cards, because you need business cards, right? But nobody likes them. So all of mine have got questions on the back.
Very
And
good.
I credit whoever gave me the question. So this one is credited to Nicola, who also still works at M&B. What will you have to give up to make room for your goals? And this one's from Sally,
Cracking
who
question.
also still works at M&B. If you did know the answer, what would it be? And then you just sit back and you just shut up and make it safe for somebody to tell themselves the truth.
Yeah.
Amanda, who I also met in hospitality, who used to work for Starbucks as well. If you had a superpower, what would you do? That's what we call a blue sky question, that one. So a bit like you kind of taking the normal parameters away from something. So yeah, we call them top right questions. They're like warm and supportive, and you ask them in a warm and supportive way. You make it safe for somebody to tell themselves the truth, but they're like interesting and curious and quite challenging. And then you shut up.
Wow. The world of active listening, right? That's the
hardest bit
yeah.
for me.
That's
as a
totally is
coach.
for me as well, especially as a podcaster. I'm like, the amount of times I'm on the show, even under our discussion today, Dulcie, the amount of times I've been like, oh, I've got something intelligent to say. Oh, let me say it. But yeah, it all comes from a positive place. Just
It does.
trying to spread the positive word of things. But I'm very, very conscious of the fact that we've just gone into the world of coaching in some kind of depth, and we haven't finished your story.
Yeah, have we not? Well,
I mean, we sort of had, but
yeah,
we didn't talk about the transitions.
We talked around it, haven't we? Yeah, but my story was, at that point, I then did some work at Purity Brewing. They were my very first clients as an independent, and I got permission from M&B at the time. Again, it was so generous and so open, really. I wanted to do both things at once. It became really clear to me that I wanted to run my own business, and they were like, you do your performance review and you stop pretending that you want to, progress up the ranks. I wanted to work for myself, wanted to do something different. I wanted to be the person at the front doing the training, not managing the training team. Right. I wanted to be a person doing the coaching, not necessarily writing the coaching strategy. I wanted to be really hands-on. And so I did both things at once. I had private clients, and Purity was one of my first ones of those. I stayed with them and worked with them, became a non-exec director there for a year and a bit. And that was brilliant, because then I could bring my MBA back and be strategic again. And then went to work with Alistair at S4 Labour, again as a very fractional HR director, as well as doing my coaching. And I did those things whilst building up this coaching training business. And I've now been doing it for over 10 years. So I've been independent and running my own business for 10 years. And I now have this beautiful business called 100 Bricks, where we have 100 science-backed training modules, if you like. So each one's got a postcard, so we don't use slides. They're really portable. Again, there you go, you've got your postcard. They're on these little stands. I post pictures of the stands for people, because it's like, you can't see that card, right? But if I take a photograph, we just take a photograph of the two of us and you can maybe use it. That picture, my postcard is in my eye line, so it prompts me about the thing I'm trying to remember when we're having a conversation. So it's not like cheating, but it's just in my mind's eye. And so much training, you've got a manual in a loft that you never use, right?
Yeah, it's about
for me, it's like everything's distilled on a postcard, each brick. And the idea of the bricks is that they can stand alone, but you can like link them together. So there's 100 standalone modules, but then you can create bespoke shapes with them. So if somebody's, got a training program and they want to build like a stepping stone program, you can build a series of steps. If you've got two teams that don't get on, you might choose some other bricks and use them to form a bridge between the teams. I can come and do a single brick at a public speaking gig, like International Women's Day. I'll just come and talk about imposters, for example. And the idea is that because I've now got the expertise in these, I've recorded videos for each of them, and you've seen some of the videos, in fact, haven't you? And the idea is that it doesn't need me anymore. I'm really hoping to have gone full circle and be that leader and be that business owner, where I don't need to be in the room for somebody to deliver a brilliant 100 Bricks training session. My business partners, so it's a bit like you can run your own business, or you can have my bricks in your business. I train you to do it yourself. So the best way to describe the way it works practically, so we've got these science-backed modules, but the best way to describe the way we deliver it is to start with, we'll come and deliver it for you, of course, no problem. And that can either be me, or we've got a series of associates now. We can match the right associate for you. So if you've got a leased and tenanted business, we'll give you somebody who's worked in leased and tenanted, right? Because it's a really different world to manage. If you run coffee shops, we'll send you somebody who's got coffee shops experience as your 100 bricks coach. But the idea is that first of all, we'll come and do it with you. But then why don't we train somebody within your business as a 100 bricks coach? So they become an accredited qualified coach. But as a result of becoming an accredited and qualified coach with us, you can also train our 100 bricks, because that's how we train our coaches, is we train them using those postcards. And then you do it with us, so you can co-tutor. And then you become an executive coach and you can do it yourself. So the whole thing is from an SME perspective, for example, there might just be a founder and a small team, and we'll come and do some leadership training for you. As you grow, you might get one HR person and they've got to do everything. So in that scenario, we'll train with you, and you've still got some skin in the game and you've got a shared language. But then when you're up to 300 people, you don't need us anymore. But great coaches make themselves redundant, and you just train our material under license. So I've come a real full circle in terms of that thing that I was fascinated about, which is how do you get people to perform brilliantly when you're not there? That's the last bit of this journey, perhaps, is
That's awesome.
letting go and actually having other people delivering my material now, so that it doesn't always have to be me.
And I can imagine it's a big step to take, but also is probably vindication of, one, the work that you've done on yourself, that you're willing to take that step, but two, it's glorious when it happens, when something that you've birthed and put into the world that is, having spent probably a little over half a day with you, really, at the thing in the NEC. I really should stop calling it the thing.
World of Learning Conference.
World of Learning, yes. That's, this stuff, just your enthusiasm and just your enthusiasm, and the fact that that little session that you did kind of ad hoc on a whiteboard with a group of people around you on stand, totally captivated me. That you obviously know your subject matter inside out and backwards, and more importantly, you believe in it and you deliver it with love. And it was wonderful to see, absolutely wonderful to see, as an outsider looking in.
Well, what a gorgeous compliment. I mean, I have to also say, though, that it's because it's based on science, right? So it is true, because it's really well researched, and all we've done is make the complex simple, as I've talked about. It's not bloody rocket science. How can we describe that, the concept of how you might accidentally threaten people, and the neurological and the physiological response to that? How can we describe that so simply that somebody who just didn't mean to offend somebody or threaten somebody, who might have been called a bully, how can we explain to them in a way that's not judgmental what happened for them and somebody else in that moment, so it can be better? You're not going to be successful in helping people to overcome poor behaviours if it's really complicated.
No.
So we just try and make it simple, but it's lovely that you describe it in that way. But it is kind of quite easy to be passionate about it when it's now distilled and it's really straightforward. But remember also that I didn't start with this stuff in my head. I'm an operator. I'd a year in finance and a few years in property. This was not my bread and butter to start with, but it can become anybody's bread and butter, because the more you repeat it and the more you read about it, the more you understand it, the more you be able to describe it to people. In fact, I bet you can describe things like top right and scarf to people now, because we've talked about them, right?
Yeah, don't test me live on a show, though.
Yeah, I won't test you live on the show, but I bet you could. And do you know what? Give me half an hour with you. I bet then you probably could do a session on the show, because that's the beauty of the modules. Is I kind of catchphrase, if you like, is it's learning that sticks and training that clicks.
Yeah.
Because we've got the bricks that click together. So,
I mean, I
kind of
see what you did there.
Yeah. I didn't do it. I had a fabulous copywriter called Kat did that. So clever Kat. But it's like training that clicks, learning that sticks, because quite often in any business, hospitality or anywhere, we've all done training programs and they don't stick. They're brilliant in the room. People loved it. And they go, oh my God, that was so fabulous. Loved that. And you go, okay, so what have you done with it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm gonna do something next week when I've got time. Or, oh yeah, I read this brilliant book. Phil, you must read this book. It's brilliant. And then the next time I see you've read the book, but you didn't do anything with it. And what we're all about is, let's just give you a little bit bite-sized bit of something. Let's enable you to keep it on your desk. Once you've embedded that, it's a bit like mirror signal maneuver when you're driving. You don't drive anymore going mirror signal maneuver. You've just got it in your head.
Not many people do drive that way anyway, by all accounts these days.
Yeah, if you've got teenagers, you're repeating it like a mantra, right?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of the postcards, is that they then stick in your head. You're doing the thing, but you've learnt the model to forget it. So that's the other thing. We have got 100 science-based models that are proven to work in real life, but we teach them to people so they can forget them and become unconsciously competent in this stuff, because it's not secret. It's just one of my frustrations, people making it much more bloody complicated than it needs to be. It's
it's not
build
bloody
high
rocket
trust
science,
relationships. Yeah, build high trust relationships and contract with people that you'll be truthful and honest, and you'll really challenge one another within that high trust relationship. And that is pretty much what the neuroscience says works. And don't lie to yourself. Surround yourself with great people so that you can spot your inner liar.
Yeah, superb. Look, I'm very conscious of time, but there's two things that I'd love to speak to you about if you've still got the time.
I do,
are you okay
always.
for the time? Brilliant.
My tummy might start rumbling, but let's talk
fine.
over it
The microphone
loudly.
won't pick that up. That's fine. I can get rid of that anyway, even if it does. We've touched on the books, but we haven't gone into depth on the books. Was there a moment where you thought, or have you always had this ambition that one day I'm going to become an author, or did it just come to you one day because it was like, I have a subject now that I love and I want to go at it?
No, I've had a murder mystery novel in my head since I was about 16. So I do talk about the fact that actually when I've got time, and I always say when you've got time is a lie we tell ourselves, because we have got time. But what I mean is, when I have expanded 100 bricks so it doesn't need me as much anymore, I'm going to do a master's, I think, in creative writing. I'm going to write this crime novel properly. So the crime novel came first. But what happened was I turned into a bit of a magpie. I got all these stories about, oh, have you come across this bit of science, and have you come across this research, and have you come across this bit of research that does evidence that happy people make more money? So I did my own research in M&B, but not many people are aware that there is evidence that links things like food hygiene scores with more engaged employees. So they've got a direct causal relationship. And I just like obsessed with like, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Google did this brilliant study where they were determined to find out what it was that made a good line manager. So Google, being Google, got rid of line managers for a while in this section of the business. So they went, well, you can't possibly work out what makes a good manager until you take them out and see what people miss. It's like, what?
Yeah,
it's like
everybody's like,
yeah. I mean, it's like zero-based budgeting for leadership, right? Take it all away and see what people miss, and just add those things back in. So stuff like those studies I'd collected, and I ended up retelling them all the time. So I started writing blogs about them, and then my clients would say, oh, you should write a book and just collect them all together. And you're like, oh, I've not got time for that classic, I've not got time. And then I thought, how hard can it be? And actually I end up not having somewhere to send people, because you can send people to the whole book, but you can't send people to like page 52 where a concept of a whole book is described really simply. And that's what It's Not Bloody Rocket Science ended up being, is like a collection of all the best bits of stuff I'd learned along the way, or the fact and evidence-based studies, like why you shouldn't have your phone on the desk because it reduces the IQ of a woman by 5 points and a man by 15 points. So if you literally want to be cleverer, you've got a big job to get done. Put your phone where you can't see it. Don't put it in your pocket where you can feel it. It's like mega, right? Yeah. It's like that was a study done at University College London and was replicated by the BBC. But it's like you can now just go and read about that study in that book, whereas before, Phil, I had to be like, oh, where was that study again? Yeah. So I just collected them all together, and people loved it. And I was just I got imposterism like I've never had it before when I released a book, because it's like, who do you think you are? And then you have to like send it out into the world and you can't explain yourself to people. But there is literally nothing like the feeling of a complete stranger posting about your book, somebody you've never met, and go, oh, I read this book and this is great. Or I had another one where I was going to have, I went to pitch for a piece of work. And the person I was pitching to, I'd never met them. They were in construction, so we weren't in the same bit, you know, they weren't in hospitality. And the guy said, I've read your book, it's brilliant. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So once you've got over yourself, it's a really great place to put things. But I did have to go away with a friend of mine who had 20 years in publishing, and she shut me in a room and wouldn't give me wine until I'd done the edits, because starting a book was quite straightforward. Once you're on a roll, it was really quite easy. Finishing a book, oh, that's really hard.
Yeah,
Really hard.
You're speaking my language now, because like ideas are not my problem. I have 10 probably every minute, to be fair, and even in this conversation I'll be scribing away at the like ooh.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. That's great. It's a great skill to have, but it's nothing if the ideas cannot be born into the world.
But then you get yourself a professional editor. I mean, there's people out there that do this for a job, because mine was a bit all over the place. But the person who edited the first edition of It's Not Bloody Rocket Science was also Richard Osman's editor.
Well, there you are.
It's like, these people are really good at their job, right? He also edited Dave Aldred's book, who worked with Johnny Wilkinson. And he's fantastic. And you have to get over yourself, because they come back and go, you need to cut all this bit out and you need to rewrite that bit. And you're like, my words. And it's just like, get over yourself. Somebody who is really good at their job has told you to cut that bit. Just cut it out.
Maybe take the advice.
Just shorten it. So I would say, Phil, write your book and just get somebody really good to edit it. We'll help you find someone.
Well, let's make it happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's not the only book. Obviously, you have highlighted Doze as well.
Yeah, and I've also written 2 journals. So actually, they're books with pages for scribbling in. So they're science light, but it means that you can kind of scribble along. So if you've not got those, I can send them to you. And the big news is I've got 2 new ones. Oh, you have got a copy of the journal. That's great. And I've got 2 new ones coming out this year. So I've got one on mentoring, because I couldn't find a really good book to recommend on how to be a good mentor or how to be a good mentee. So we've in effect written 2 books, and we're just editing them at the minute. And in effect, we've written It's Not Bloody Rocket Science for Mentors. So it's all about the good science that sits behind being a great mentor. But we've done a journal version for a mentee. And again, I hate that word, Phil, but I still can't think of a better word. So if anybody listening to your podcast can think of a better word for mentee than mentee, because it's a bit like coach and coachee.
Yeah.
It's crap. I don't like it, but I can't think of one. We've tried partner, we've tried catalyst, we've tried like protege doesn't work. I might be mentoring somebody who's a business owner. They're not my protege.
Igniter.
Yeah, something. Anyway, so we're doing mentoring, and I've written that with, I've co-written that book with, I worked it out yesterday. We cover 4 continents and 3 generations. Because how on earth do I write a book about mentoring that's valuable? It needs to not just be about my lived experience. So we've got people from different cultures, different sectors working on that. And I've also got another book coming out this year that again is being co-written by 2 brilliant people who I've trained to be coaches. So Laura and Sarah. And that is about becoming a line manager for the very first time. Because what we realised was that's all very well if you're a young person. Quite often you get some training. But what if you're a solicitor and you've been a solicitor for 10 years and suddenly you're promoted and you get a team of solicitors? Who tells you about the things that you should do to be a good line manager at that point? Or you're an accountant, or we're quite lucky in hospitality, right? Somebody shows you the ropes. You watch people managing, and it's really easy to see what to do and to make judgments. But actually, if you're in professional services, it's really hard sometimes to know what good leadership looks like. And what people default to doing is doing their job really well and modelling how to be a good solicitor or a good accountant. And we're like, let's make it really straightforward. Let's just pick the 6 things that we think great line managers do. And if you're doing them for the first time as a professional grown-up, really easy, straightforward. But also it does mean that if you are going into, you are a younger person going into leadership for the first time, you can learn the same stuff. It's not rocket science, right? It's the same stuff. It's just you do it for a slightly different audience. So that's going to be called Cornerstones. So it's about the
Nice.
foundations in being a great people leader and mentoring. And then I might have a rest from writing books for a
Yeah,
bit.
well, you hell. There'll be something else.
She says, with two on the go at once. But I've also now got It's Not Bloody Rocket Science recorded on Audible. And I only did that last year because I'd put that off for ages. Nothing like
Right.
telling yourself you've not got time, when actually I just didn't want to hear myself speak. It's sitting in a room, a proper recording studio, with nobody to talk to for 2 days and just talking to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I've spoken to a couple of people who've been through that process, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's very special to
Yeah.
do that. Just
So I think
recruit Stephen Fry to read it out for you.
Well, no, the reason I put it off is I couldn't bear the idea of It's Not Bloody Rocket Science not being read by me, but I didn't want to read it.
Yeah.
So it's like, get out your own way, Dulcie, right? But
Yeah.
people say the beautiful things about my book, and what an absolute compliment for people to give you. They say your book is just like listening to you talk, and I can hear you in my ear when
Yeah.
I read your books, and so I thought, well, I really want to talk them. But with both of those books, because they're co-authored, won't that be cool? Be like different voices with different experiences, talking you through their experience of mentoring or their experience of being a line manager for the first time. So it's just not one version of the truth. It's like as many lived experiences as I can get in one book, but still keeping it really simple. That's 2026's big challenge.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I've come full circle as well. I'm involved in 2 mega projects back in hospitality again. So I've come home.
Well, hospitality is the better for having you back. Then
Well,
in that,
I've never
that
been
respect.
away. I've always had thinkers and in hospitality, and I've now done training with most pubcos, most restaurant companies, certainly in the UK. But I'm coming back to be part of Elton Mooner, as some of you who read Propel will know. He's doing some work on bullying, and I'm hoping to bring that kind of safe space training, because I really think that not many people bully somebody on purpose. Right, that there'll be there's a segment of people. I think the science says that 15% of CEOs in the UK and the US are psychopaths, and I think it's 5% in the general prison population. So you've got that to contend with. But take the psychopath test out of it. There's some really poor performance in organisations, right? There's some behaviours that are just not on. But actually, I would really doubt whether that is always done from a bad place by bad people. One of the things we're trained as a coach to do is look for positive intent. So where people are frightened, for example, for their own career, for their own reputation, you're not going to behave very well in those circumstances. And then you'll lie to yourself that actually it didn't matter because, or actually they didn't take it as badly as I thought they did, and you make it okay. Nobody else speaks up, and that makes everybody think that that behaviour is okay, because actually nobody else called it out either. And you can explain all of that in neuroscience. You can explain it all. So my hope is, by bringing a bit of science to what's going to be called the Good Apple Project, we can help people to, well, we can help the hospitality industry to have less bullying in it, but without like being really judgy. Because I've probably done things in the past where I've responded in anger or out of fear, and somebody might go, "God, that's really not on." Like, how would I know, Phil? How would I know if I've upset somebody unless they tell me? And they're only going to tell you if it's really safe to feed back to you. And if somebody's scared of you, you're not going to get the feedback that you need to know that you've upset someone, right?
Yeah.
Vicious
No, and
circle.
that circle
So
go on. Yeah.
hoping to bring a bit of science to that. And then another business that was launched, I think just this week in Propel, but called North Star. So I'm really super excited to be doing some work with them, to work with operators in particular, to make operators even more brilliant, because that's I still think I'm a pub operator. I still, in my head, that's the job I still do, even though I've not done it for 20 years.
That's definitely your roots. That's where it all started. That's where you got.
Yeah.
That's where you ignited.
It is.
Into and all of these other things have happened because of that.
Yeah.
No doubt. But
Yeah.
no, look, Dulcie, thank you so much for coming on the show and being so free as well with ideas and information and the like. You have so much collateral that can do people great favours within their career or life. And it's been an absolute joy to get to know you over these last few months, and look forward to our next conflab, whenever that or whatever that may be about.
Oh, well, we definitely need to do it over a pint, and maybe, given our experience in hospitality, we'll just have a good old debate about where to go and get the best pints and the best burger.
Let's start
And
there.
we'll go and do it there, shall we? We'll do that offline, though, so we don't upset anybody.
Fantastic. Yeah, that one's not edited. Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dulcie.
Oh, thank you for having me. We've been fab talking.
Wonderful. Take care. And there we bloody have it. Dulcie Swanston proving that great leadership really isn't bloody rocket science. What a bloody episode. We will of course be back next bloody week with another bloody brilliant story from within hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you bloody then.